Okay, so this should be the final video for the adjusting process. So just to kind of review, we had our unadjusted trial balance. We journalized a whole bunch of different journal entries. I'll go back actually to the spreadsheets here. So we had our unadjusted trial balance to begin with. And then we had a whole bunch of adjusting entries. We had some through accrued revenues, we had some accrued expenses, we had some earned revenues that needed to be adjusted. We had prepaid expenses that required adjustment. These are all in prior videos if this isn't making sense to you. We had our depreciation, which I don't think I put in here, but the depreciation was, it said they had $50 worth of depreciation. So there we got a debit and a credit for depreciation expense and cumulative depreciation. So then we had all those adjustments. So now we've made a whole bunch of adjustments. Now, technically, these would be posted to Ledger. Ledger is kind of a big, intricate thing. I would recommend looking through that. But if you look, it's Exhibit 8 from page 122 to page 124. You'll see yellow highlighted adjusting entries at the end of each one of those ledgers. I've kind of made it a little bit different type of summary here, but it really is doing the same thing. Exhibit 7, by the way, shows the adjusting entries too. And so does the prior exhibit, Exhibit 6. That gives you kind of more details. So from there, I had my unadjusted trial balance, and now I've made adjustments. So what adjustments do is they change the balances on all these accounts. So now I can create an adjusted trial balance, which is just the same thing, a trial balance, but after my adjustments have been made. So all I did was I took my unadjusted trial balance, which is here, which matched the very first one we did from the first video, have all my adjustments here, and I do have totals down at the bottom just to make sure everything balances. And now I can make my adjusted trial balance. Now remember, just like the ledger, if something has a debit balance in it and I debit it, I add it. If something has a credit balance in it and I credit it, then I add it, but it goes in the credit column. But if it's going the opposite direction, I'm going to subtract it. So cash didn't have anything happen to it, so that one's nice and easy. It's 2065. Accounts receivable had a debit balance, and I debited the account for an adjustment, 500. So I added it. I got 500 down here for the other side, but I'm not there yet. Supplies had a $2,000 debit balance in it. I credited it for $1,240, which means I need to subtract. It still has a debit balance, but I need to subtract $1,240 from the $2,000. Prepaid insurance had a debit balance in it. I'm crediting the account, so I'm going to subtract it. Which means now it's got a balance of a $50 credit. That's the only entry in that account. Accounts payable has a credit balance of 900 and no adjustment occurred. Wages payable had nothing to begin with, but had a credit adjustment of $250. $40 credit balance. Let me center these to make this a little easier to see. Okay. Common stock has a credit balance of 25,000 and nothing happened to it, so I have a credit balance still 25,000. Retained earnings didn't have anything in it for now, it's fine. Dividends has a debit balance, on the wrong side here, has a debit balance of 4,000, no adjusting entry. Fees earned had a credit balance of 16,340 and had a credit, which means it's an increase in credit balance plus a credit. So I add the 500, so now the balance is 16,840. Rent revenue had no balance in it from the unadjusted trial balance, but had a credit on the adjusting entries of 120. And again, all these entries were done. This isn't a journal entry here, by the way. This is just a list of my adjustments. I did the journal entries in prior videos. I just did this to make it easier to add and subtract across to get my trial balance, my adjusted trial balance in order. So, all right, so I'm down to wages expense, had a debit balance of $42.75. We debited it for an additional $250, so I'm going to add it. Supplies expense had $800 in it. I debited it for an additional $1,240, so I'm going to add it. Rent expense didn't change. Utilities expense, no adjustment. Insurance expense started with nothing, but I debited it for $200, so it's going to be $200 debit balance. Depreciation expense started with nothing. I debited it from $50, so I'm going to have a debit balance of $50. And miscellaneous expense had no adjustment, started with $455 debit balance, and so I bring that balance over. So now, this is my unadjusted trial balance that I had to begin this chapter. These are the adjustments. This is the bulk of what we did in the chapter when we journalized and posted and talked about what they all were and what they all did. And now, for the very end of this chapter, this is my adjusted trial balance. This is what I would want to create my set of financial statements from. I'd want to create my income statement, my statement of shareholders' equity, and my balance sheet from these accounts, from the ending balance after adjustment. Because I'd want to make these adjustments at the end of every, depends on the company, but the end of every month, end of every quarter, end of every year, to make sure that everything is properly accounted for with accruals and deferrals and everything else that we talked about in this chapter. And that would be it for chapter 3.